So I'd like to start by welcoming everybody to the Forward in Energy Forum. We appreciate everyone joining us today in the room and online. My name is Lulu Fragoso. I'm one of the education and outreach assistants here at the Wisconsin Energy Institute at UW-Madison. Welcome to those of you who are returning forum attendees. And if this is your first time joining us for one of our events, we're really glad that you're here. The Wisconsin Energy Institute's mission is to provide leadership on campus for multidisciplinary research, education, and outreach efforts that accelerate our transition to clean energy systems and solutions. The Forward in Energy Forum is a monthly series that brings together experts both on and off campus for cross-disciplinary dialogue, exploring important technical, social, political, and economic dimensions of a wide variety of clean energy innovations and topics. Today's forum on Latina energy leaders falls within two important celebrations: Wisconsin Science Festival and Latina Heritage Month. Over 100 events from Q&As with scientists to behind-the-scenes tours happening all across Wisconsin this week, and you can learn more about these events and find them at wiscfest.org, which is up here on the board if you're interested. Today is also the last day of the UW-Madison Latina Heritage Month, a vibrant celebration hosted by the UW Latina Cultural Center. We hope you've had a chance to check out some of their amazing events, and I want to thank all of the members of the 2024 Planning Committee for their work and creativity. And before we get into today's session, I have just a few more announcements. First, we would like to acknowledge that the land that WEI occupies, as well as all of UW-Madison, is the ancestral home of the Ho-Chunk people, who have called this land Dejope since time immemorial. We recognize and respect the inherent sovereignty of the Ho-Chunk Nation and the other 11 Native nations within the boundaries of what we now call Wisconsin. Please take time to learn more about and support the efforts of tribal nations in Wisconsin and beyond, who are leading the transition toward clean energy and just energy systems. Next, we would like you to save the date for our next Forward in Energy Forum, Upgrading the Grid to Meet Clean Energy Goals Forward in Energy Forum. We're really excited to hear about how experts from across Wisconsin are thinking about this pressing challenge. Finally, a couple of logistical notes. We'll have opening remarks from our panelists and some Q&A with our moderator before taking the audience questions. And for people on Zoom, please submit your questions in the Q&A box and we'll get to them. Finally, if you need live captioning, you can toggle that feature by clicking on Show Captions button in Zoom. And if you have any other technical concerns, please let us know in the chat. And to moderate today's panel, I am pleased to introduce Justice. Justice Castaneda is a PhD candidate in urban and regional planning and the executive director of Commonwealth Development. As an educator and economic development specialist, Justice professional and academic work explores the intersections of housing policy, economic development, and community violence. Looking at the role these intersections play in educational and life outcomes for youth who have experienced traumatic events in early childhood and adolescence. We are very grateful to have him with us to set the stage for today's discussion. Thank you, and take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's an honor to be here with you all, but most importantly with our panel. I just kind of going through this. It's always really humbling to have to introduce such a esteemed group. So we're talking about something that's timely because it's important. It's something that affects us, not just here in Wisconsin, but the world that we're living in, and tackling the climate crisis and environmental injustice that comes with it. So let's start with the known, and I think our panelists are going to get into this, is that we know that the climate crisis does not affect all of us equally. In Wisconsin and across the United States, low-income communities, our communities of color, and our immigrant populations, particularly Latina and BIPOC communities, are disproportionately affected by environmental injustice. These are the communities and our people who are often and overwhelmingly bearing the brunt of air pollution, poor water quality, environmental degradation, and generally speaking, have fewer resources to address it. But also today, I want to talk about another parallel thread that's going on with it. It's not just about the challenges, it's about the leadership and the innovation and the vision that our Latina and in many cases our immigrant communities bring to the fight for environmental justice. Here in Wisconsin, we're seeing professionals, scientists, advocates, innovators from our communities and from these communities, not only identifying the problems and dealing with the problems, but coming up with the solutions. And in many cases are at the edge, the cutting edge of the solutions that are sustainable, equitable, community driven, and at the core of it represent the foundations of how we're going to move forward through this. So from renewable energy technologies to climate policy advocacy, our Latina leaders are at the forefront of this work, pushing for the transformative changes that benefit all of us. We're incredibly fortunate to have with us today a distinguished panel of leaders who are making significant strides in addressing both the climate crisis and environmental injustices. Each of these individuals brings a unique perspective, a wealth of knowledge, and a deep commitment to creating a more sustainable and just future. We'll hear about innovative technologies, policy interventions, grassroots organizing efforts that are shaping the way forward, not just for Latina communities, but for all of us. So today with us, in a different order than it was on the website, so I'm gonna go by that. So we have Mario Garcia Sierra from Madison Gas and Electric. Mario has been with Madison Gas and Electric since 2012. Throughout his tenure, he has spearheaded community partnerships and collaborations to address the needs of MG&E's increasingly diverse customer base. In 2022, he was appointed Director of Residential and Community Services, an area dedicated to promoting energy efficiency and conservation within the community. Prior to joining MG&E, Mario worked at Centro Hispano of Dane County from 2008 to 2012. Later, he served on the organization's board of directors from 2014 to 2020. He started his economic studies in Guatemala City. He has a bachelor's degree in agricultural and applied economics from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and a master's degree in sustainable management from the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. We also have Victor Nino from EcoBalance Technologies. Victor Nino is the founder of EcoBalance Technologies, a global engineering firm implementing technologies reducing carbon emissions in buildings and communities. He holds both a PhD in mechanical engineering and a master's of business administration from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Victor has more than 20 years of industrial experience in the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning field. He is a member of ASHRAE, which is the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers, and currently serving as the Government Affairs Committee Chair of ASHRAE Wisconsin Milwaukee chapter. Victor teaches HVAC fundamentals at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee School of Continuous Education program. We also have Cristina Carvajal, from Wisconsin Eco Latinos. Cristina is a passionate advocate for environmental justice, is the founder and executive director of Wisconsin Eco Latinos. Cristina's diverse background in engineering and strong commitment have led her to spearhead initiatives on environmental conservation, sustainability, and addressing environmental hazards. She is a member of Sustainable Madison Community and was formerly part of Lake Monona Waterfront Ad Hoc Committee and the Fitchburg Sustainability Plan Advisory Committee. In recognition of her significant contributions, Cristina was named one of Wisconsin's 40 most influential Latino leaders by Madison 365 in 2023, and she received the Live Forward Award from Sustain Dane. We also have Teresa Delgadillo, who's the Vilas Distinguished Achievement Professor, English, Chicana, and Latina Studies at UW-Madison. Teresa is a scholar of Chicana and Latina literatures and cultures, including the hemispheric and transnational dimensions of these. Founder of the online publications Mujeres Talk in 2010, Delgadillo led the editorial board of this site in expanding its mission and renaming in 2017 to Latinx Talk. Delgadillo has participated in or led efforts to create Latinx studies curriculums at 4 universities. She has led or participated in numerous professional collaborations, including a recent co-edited volume. Three key areas of research and publication for her have been the intersection of gender, race and ethnicity, religion and spirituality, Latinx in the Midwest, and Black Afro-Latinidad diaspora and the borderlands in the film and literature of the Americas. Delgadillo teaches and advises undergraduate and graduate studies in both literary and interdisciplinary studies. She is active in service to her department, college, and university to advance the mission of providing an excellent education to all students. Away from work, Del Rio enjoys getting outdoors as much as possible for a walk, a bicycle ride, or hike to appreciate the diversity of the natural world. She is passionate about diversifying the academy. All right, I got through that. That was a lot. But it is a lot. And first and foremost, it's always important for me to say that I'm very humbled to be with you guys. And so right now, we're just gonna start off. Christina, I think you're gonna go first, and you could talk a little bit about your work and what we're doing here.
William, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us. I'm honored to be here today and to talk about Wisconsin Ecolatinos work. So our mission is to engage the Latino community in environmental conservation and climate change action. So the organization is born out of the urgency to engage everyone in a meaningful action. Everyone needs to come to the table and take action to address climate change. We also want to bring attention, bring awareness about the disproportionate impact of pollution on people of color. According to the American Lung Association, people of color is 3 times more likely to be exposed to air pollution than whites in the United States. So how do we address these issues with the community? We design these outreach programs to bring the basic science to the community that is not likely to be connected to the academic environment. And also we designed these community science projects because we want people to not just learn about an issue, but we want to make sure they take action. And many times it will require changing behaviors. So we consider this is a meaningful way to engage the community. We also we want to address, we want to engage people in disadvantaged areas. We know there is environmental burdens in our communities, as is stated and documented by many studies from EPA. If you look at maps like Justice 40 or the environmental justice map from EPA, there are communities in Wisconsin that are more affected by different environmental burdens. One of those burdens is energy burden. And so for us, taking action against, taking action on energy burden with energy efficiency and decarbonization is an action against climate change. We've seen studies where communities, low-income communities in the area have a higher energy burden. And one way for us to address this situation is teaching people how to take measures on energy efficiency, for example. But also we have the opportunity with the Inflation Reduction Act to get these great benefits they're offering to weatherization, for weatherization and decarbonization and adopting renewable energy. But we understand that our communities, most of the time don't know about these programs. So we have developed a program in partnership with Dane County that is called the Energy Efficiency Ambassadors, where we're just gonna engage people in one-on-one conversations and having them learn about how to benefit from the Inflation Reduction Act, tax credits and rebates, so they can remodel their homes, reduce their energy burden, and also reduce carbon emissions. The benefits are also financial, because if people invest in their homes, then they're gonna have some financial benefits there too. What else I can tell you today? So we continue. The other part that is really important for us, it's advocacy, because there is so much as an individual we can do, right? There is so much the community can do to protect the environment, to reduce their carbon footprint, and we depend on policy and regulations. So we take seriously our advocacy work, representing the community before regulatory agencies, to protect, to always ensure a clean environment and fair opportunities for the community.
Thank you so much. And I definitely, later on, I hope we get back to talking about the cost and the differentials and disproportionate cost that's borne by our communities, but also the amount that we're putting in and not able to actually reap the benefits. So that's, I think some of those points are really great. Next, we're going to hear from Dr. Teresa Delgadillo.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Lulu, for the invitation, and Wisconsin Energy Institute, and thank you to Justice for that moderating and the introduction, and thank you to my co-panelists. I'm really honored to be on the same panel with all of you. I want to start out by talking a little bit about the fact that Latinx are, let's see, you can go to the next one. Thanks. That Latinx are involved in thinking about climate change. So according to the 2021 Pew Research report, 8 in 10 Latinx say that addressing global climate change is a top concern or one of several important concerns to them personally. And about 7 in 10 say that climate change is affecting their local community. Interestingly, in this report, the foreign-born portion of this population appears to recognize this even more strongly than the US-born population. And I think that's very interesting. The survey captures Latinx views on multiple aspects of climate change that Latinx communities are experiencing, from Hurricane Maria's devastation in Puerto Rico, to Houston's inundation several times, to heat stress for agricultural workers, to immigration prompted by the loss of agricultural or farmable land. Next quote. Kathleen Alcala, a Chicana writer in the Pacific Northwest who lives on Bainbridge Island, embarked on a year-long exploration of sustainability on her island. Could the people of Bainbridge Island sustain themselves only with what's available on Bainbridge Island? She wrote a book about this year-long experiment that draws and is informed by the teachings of her Opata indigenous ancestors. So Latinx writers and scholars and artists are thinking about the connections between systems and cultures, as she highlights in this quote, right? There's a strong connection between systems and cultures. Next slide. Scholar Julie Size tells us that solving the climate crisis requires us to think with local communities. This means also thinking in relation to other communities and seeing ourselves in relation to them. Here in Wisconsin, particularly with the 11 American indigenous tribes and their historic presence on this land. Next slide. So while my colleagues in Latinx studies here at UW-Madison are focused on many aspects of this issue, including thinking about agriculture, labor rights, and the sociology of climate change in Latinx communities, my own work has been at the intersection of culture and cultural expression. Scientists suggest that human behavior bears much responsibility for climate change, and therefore culture must be an integral part of any solution to climate change. In our research volume, Building Sustainable Worlds, we looked at when we invite readers to consider alternative routes, itineraries, and strategies for creating both a good life and a sustainable place. Next quote. And we're interested in activating the knowledge that already exists in our communities, which is often revealed through cultural expression. This particular slide is the practice of permaculture, or milpa, Many of us know that our families grew up having little gardens called milpas in the back if you lived in an urban area. Some families in the Chicago area historically used railroad lands, to create milpas at the edge of the city, a form of agriculture in which the three sisters, beans, corn, and squash, sustain each other and provide a sustainable model of agriculture. We are interested in thinking about some of those alternative strategies, that, as well as working with our local communities to create new alternative strategies based on the places and the new contexts that we inhabit here.
Thank you very much. I think one thing you bring up, and we're gonna hopefully get, I want to get to so many things, but the importance of not letting go and maintaining our spirituality and that katura kura, the thing that's in us in terms of our ancestral work as we go forward, because it can be difficult sometimes to try to maintain that while also trying to distinguish ourselves. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. Who wants to go first? Go ahead. Yeah, and Mario, as you get, well, we'll hear from Mario, and then I got some specific stuff I want to talk to you about in terms of systems and the way that we approach this through systems work. So go ahead.
Sounds good. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm also honored and humbled to be here with you today and online. Yeah, I'm glad that we were able to do this conversation on the 15th, so the last day of the month of Hispanic Heritage Month. But I hope that it's the beginning or the continuation of this very important conversation. As you heard, I was born and raised in Guatemala City, and growing up there in a marginalized community. I never thought that one day I'll be here at the UW Madison talking about electricity or energy overall. And I mentioned this in particular because growing up, I was used to outages, like leaving school at night, or leaving school. Sometimes I would wonder if at night I will have electricity, or when I was leaving work. And the relationship with the utility was not the greatest. So there was, in fact, there was a hostile relationship there between communities and the local utility, which was public, and then it was privatized thanks to the Washington Consensus. But that's a different story. So when I came here to Madison, it was your typical story. This young immigrant trying to search for a better future, and I thought I'll be here for a few years, but it's been 20 years, and I'm still here. And I joined MGE about 12 years ago. And my connection before joining MGE was just my connection to the company was just through the bill, and that was it. And the times here and there when there was an outage. So that was to the extent I had a connection with the company. But working at Centro Hispano, that's when I got to learn more about MGE, your community energy company model, and the partnership that the company has and had with community-based organizations like Centro Hispano to reach and engage immigrants like me who perhaps didn't know how to navigate the system and also didn't have the trust with the company. So that's the model that I inherited when I became the director, and that's the one that we continue to advance as a team of 9 people who are dedicated to promoting energy efficiency, conservation, and new technologies. And yes, MG&E is it's a system, and I think I'm one of many people in the company who we are rooted in community, and we really take your community energy company to heart, and we bring that to everything that we do. And you might heard that we have some net zero goals, and the goal is by 2050, your electricity will be net zero. And that's all the way to 2050. But by 2030, 80%, there will be an 80% reduction on carbon emission. That's the overall goal. And it's a challenge to get there. and we are used to electricity being always there. We never question, or I wonder how many times you were going to your house and you questioning if you will have electricity there. And I know that that's one thing that a lot of people in our community might question, especially if they might be disconnected for non-payment. But our strategy to get to net zero is decarbonizing the grid, meaning that retiring coal power plants and also increasing renewable energy. Electrification, you see around our community, we have a wide network of electric charging stations, for examples, and now heat pumps. We believe that those are part of the solutions too. Energy efficiency, the housing there are a lot of housing in our area, housing stock that needs to be uh, that issue needs a lot of improvements, and sadly, that's the housing that a lot of low income or low wage workers get to access. So that's an issue there. I learned to think a system. So when I think about energy burden, I think about the whole system that is impacting that, and I think that housing, the lack of housing, and the poor quality of housing, it's at the core of all of that. And what you will hear from me are my own words. So if you're gonna tweet or X about it, just quote me. If you want the official version of the company, I can get you to that person. But today, it's just me talking about my experience working at MGE and in the community.
Thank you, and we're really honored to have you here. So I think where you actually had a perfect segue in terms of thinking about this, in terms of the spectrum of technologies that we could be thinking about in terms of our public and community infrastructure. Good afternoon.
That's
Dr.
a
Nino.
perfect segue. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm also very honored of being here. I hope this is good distance. My name is Victor Niño. I'm the founder of EcoBalance Technologies. EcoBalance Technologies is basically a company to basically provide technology solutions. I'm focused more into the building side. There is basically many areas to focus on. And in the building side, one of the most important things is basically comfort conditions, indoor air quality, and then how to manage the energy of the building sustainable. So right now, I'm actually basically being the boots in the ground. I have been right now I'm consulting the city of Milwaukee. They have a grant that is basically part of this Inflation Reduction Act. Milwaukee is doing amazing things related to a climate action and equity plan. And I'm part of this initiative. So I'm working very closely in these marginalized areas in Milwaukee, kind of like in the northwest of downtown. I'm doing the first thing that you do is an energy assessment to understand basically what are the needs of the building, what are the areas to improve, but also what we are trying to understand also is what are the type of gaps, what are the type of workforce that is needed to basically apply those measurements, those measures or those recommendations, for example, installing a heat pump, doing weatherization, installing solar and all that stuff. So that's basically what we are trying to understand. What is the gaps that there are right now regarding workforce development, and then trying to find basically the communities where we can start training them to fill the next generation of basically the green jobs over here. I will just stop there.
No, it's great. And I think, hopefully we can come back to that, because I think, when we literally have tens of millions of buildings across the United States, and that's probably a low estimate, that need to be retrofitted and weatherized, we probably have percentages in the single digits of the workforce to do, and there's huge opportunities to talk about that. I'm going to start. I have a couple questions, and then we'll see what we got from the audience and then the chat. I'll just start off with something I noticed when I was looking at everyone's bios and the work that you all represent in terms of your lives, is that we really have 4 dimensions of this work all here. So we have the advocacy work, we have the work in supporting our people and through scholarship and research, we have our systems, and then we have the technology in terms of the private sector. What I'd like to hear from you guys is, what are both the opportunities and also the challenges with really thinking about these synergies as we go forward with this work in Wisconsin and across the country?
So I would say the challenges, well, as I was saying, the Inflation Reduction Act is an amazing opportunity for people to take action on decarbonization. But I'm always concerned about what would be the equitable access to this technology, the wonderful technology that we have. So the people from the communities, disadvantaged communities, are able to take advantage of this technology. And that is part of our work, making sure that people learns what is available to them and how to navigate the system so they can have access to these numerous programs that are available right now.
I think one of the things is the involvement of local communities in the discussion. And I think that kind of engagement is really critical to creating solutions that serve all rather than reproducing disparities and hierarchies and who gets access to resources or who resources serve. And I think that we need to consider energy as part of a complex web that involves issues beyond energy. So, mining and extraction forces people to leave their lands and creates migration. And then the disposal of toxic waste for certain kinds of energy has often been shuffled onto the lands of marginalized peoples in the US. So when we're thinking about solutions to the problem, I think we need to think as well with local communities about the consequences and ramifications of those. And we need to think more broadly about how this affects policies in other areas, because there are systems at work, and we need to think systemically about how to enact solutions.
I think technology it's a great opportunity right now, but it's also a challenge because, for example, when in climates like Wisconsin, so now we're working with a lot of customers to so that they better understand a heat pump, and there are a lot of questions there. When it gets too cold here in Wisconsin, would the heat pump be enough? If we get a polar vortex, would the heat pump be enough? So those are questions out there. With solar panels, that's another question as well. The what happens when the sun is not shining? What happens when there is not enough wind or too much wind, or when it gets too cold? For example, when the turbines stop working, that's another challenge there. As we already said, the industry is now diverse, so we need to also work on that. And everything is piled up and in the face of climate change. I think that there is a sense of urgency there that we all need to get involved in the conversation. MG&E, it's a small player. We serve 163,000 electric customers in the Madison area, but there are other utilities serving in the millions of customers. So yeah, we just are behind, but I think that this is the right time to do it, because if we don't do it now, then when? And if we are not the ones, and then who?
I will just add, I mean, these are all, I would say, very, very valid, very, very good points. I will just add more of what I have seen, how to say, groups doing already. Kind of like we are starting to discuss all this advocacy, for example. Advocacy, I think it needs to be a lot done here in the state of Wisconsin. We are, how do you say, maybe a little bit using old Wisconsin codes that it could be updated, for example, to start moving towards more efficient buildings. For example, the city of, Milwaukee, they are doing a tremendous, wonderful job over there is because they are doing just going through the community. So that was an excellent point about going to the community. So what they have been doing is basically they are actually religious leaders within the northwest side of the city. Basically, they are gathering together and they created this green congregation initiative where basically they are, well, first is basically, well, let's start by leading by example, doing energy assessments of their own buildings, and then start bringing their community of their congregations together just to also provide that education about what is a heat pump, what happened with the IRA, how the IRA is going to work for a residential market, and so on and so on. So those are the type of I'm happy to report those activities of these unsung heroes in Milwaukee, that they are working really hard to start basically bringing that community together to basically create solutions for the future. And I was gonna say one more, and regarding challenges, yeah, challenges. I mean, when we talk about energy. Yes, the energy burden. Thank you. The energy burden. Yes, the energy burden means is how much percentage of your energy bill is compared to your income. But then when you're in those communities too, energy is not the problem. Sometimes there is other problems like indoor air quality, like all buildings will have these materials that might be very hazardous, like lead or asbestos or something of that. So it's basically, it's kind of like, well, what can we do here? We need to really invest basically more infrastructure of the building to just remove those contaminants first before thinking about energy efficiency. So we need to start understanding also the prioritization of those type of problems compared to energy efficiency, for example.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I'm gonna ask a couple more, and then we'll open it up to the audience to see if we have anything from online. And so I know we have some of the things that we thought about when we were getting ready to do this. I'm going to merge a couple of these questions just because I felt like they but one of the things is the ways that we can what is the importance and the urgency in engaging and including our youth voices in climate solutions, and then what strategies are being used to engage our younger Latina generations in the environmental justice movement. And then the next part of that, and Dr. Delgadillo, this is one of the questions that I think came to mind when you were talking, is what are the roles of the organizations and that the youth are coming into in terms of providing support for our younger generations of leadership in this area?
I really love that question. And I'm so glad that there are so many young people here, because obviously this is going to be your world, and it really matters to that generation. And I have no doubt that in that Pew survey of the fact that Latinx populations are already thinking about this as a necessity and a priority, that they are doing so because they care about their young people and their families, that matters to us. So I think it's absolutely essential for young people to be involved in in participating in discussions about solutions to climate change, and in participating in cultural change that can help take us to better climate and energy futures. And one of the things that, since reading Robin Wall Kimmerer, and she is an illustrious graduate of UW-Madison, she's a renowned botanist, and her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, is such an amazing exploration of the necessity of thinking about sustainability every day. And I really think that should be required reading in all Wisconsin high schools. I think every high school student in Wisconsin should have to read, should study. I think they will want to study this particular reading. So I think that it needs to be part of K-12 education. And it is obviously increasingly a part of what students at UW-Madison are thinking about. This comes up often in our classes and in our teaching. We have faculty in Chicano and Latino studies who are teaching about Latinx populations and climate change and thinking about this. So I do think that this is absolutely something that young people want to be involved in and need to be involved in.
I also agree. I think it's a beautiful question, in part because I'm responsible for a 15-year-old who comes up with a lot of questions, and I think that in terms of the environment, the young people are there. The young people are organizing, and I think that we see Greta out there, but that there are a lot of local indigenous people across the globe organizing for this, and at MGNE, we have what we call the School Partnership Initiative. And what we do here is we partner with local schools to bring energy to the classroom. Gloria Castillo, my colleague here, co-leads that effort. And we in particular partner with the community schools that here in the Madison area. And as you know, the community schools, um, are schools that are in neighborhoods that have high needs. And the model is we bring a lot of community partners to work with the students, with the educators, and the families. So we work with the students, the educators, and then the the parents on all energy topics. And I think that that's we've been doing that for several years, this model, and I think that there's a lot of engagement there. The Dane County Youth Climate Conference that also came out of the White Cat movement a few years ago. Again, it just shows how young people are involved, and to me, we just need to make sure that we make space for them, that I'm able to leave my seat for a young person to be part of the conversation and create that space. Quick story. I was talking to a kid at Leopold not too long ago, and I asked him, we had a wind turbine there, model wind turbine there, and I asked him, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And he told me, I want to be a roofer. And I asked, like, why do you want to be a roofer? Because my dad is a roofer. So he had a lot of pride in that. So, and then I asked the question, how about if you add solar panels to the roofs? And he was like, oh, wow, that's a good question. I don't know. So we started the conversation about renewable energy, homes, and and roofs and what he wants to do. I have no idea what he would do in the future, but I think at least we are planting the seeds with the young people there.
Yeah, I want to emphasize also about the young generation is, I think they're the ones who are going to find the solutions to climate change. And we need to engage them in green jobs. They need to go into the work, increasing the workforce, preparing the workforce for the jobs that will be needed to implement our renewable energy.
Yeah, I will say to complement, I will just follow in the sense of I think the green job. So how well one of the things that is actually for some reason is disappearing is the trades, basically the carpentry, the construction, the electrician. Sorry. So it's so those are actually some works that they are disappearing. So those are actually the ones that they are we want to fill out first, in the sense that actually when you do an energy assessment, the first things that you think about is basically this weatherization. Weatherization is basically we need construction people that they know how to change a roof, to fix a window, to seal the envelopes, things like that. And I think those are the type of gaps that I'm starting to discover. I work in an urban area, so I'm actually surprised that we cannot find people that can fill out those jobs quickly. So those are the type of gaps that I'm starting to discover. The other one that is easy to fill out is electricians. Electricians is as well. It just there is a lot of need, for example, to change from incandescent or fluorescent lighting to LED lighting. And for that, it needs electricians to do that type of work, or change the electric panels, upgrade it with heat pumps. Now you're starting to use electricity for heating and cooling. So you need to understand all that stuff. And now you're connecting solar. Then that's kind of like the type of type of jobs that you are starting to look at. And yes, in other words, what we are looking at is kind of like an area where we can start fill out quickly, I will say, mentor and mentee programs or apprenticeship programs will be a good way to do it. So how can we do that? So why they are a little bit empty sometimes is because when you are in the trades, you need to have a license, you need to have insurance, and sometimes those are the hardest things to get. So you really need to have a mentor who has those two things, for the mentor to bring the people to understand the trades, to practice the trades. So you put the hours of work, and then you can start bringing them, and now they can have their own license and then insurance as well when they feel comfortable, and the city or the state will approve those certifications. So those will be the two, I would say, the two short-term areas. Then the long-term areas is more about, now it's more about HVAC. HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, air conditioning. And those are the ones that they are now, it needs a little more certification, more time to go. You might need to go to a technical college to go through maybe a 2-year program to understand that. But there is a lot of technology coming in. So that's, I would say, that the young generation is to fill out those jobs. They are great jobs to work for. And there are other jobs that is advocacy. Those are the type of advocacy. I think the young generation, you guys are gonna lead on advocacy, on trying to understand what are the most sustainable practices that we can bring into the communities and so on. So I would say that those are the type of jobs that we are seeing today.
You know, you mentioned something. You mentioned the concept of mentorship, and I think for a lot of, I mean, I was young once, but a lot of us can remember when we first were coming up and getting into the workforce, and how difficult it can be to find mentors, especially when you're going into a lot of, whether it's businesses, whether it's a university, wherever you're going to go, or an industry where there's not a whole lot of folks who look like us, or who actually identify with our histories. So, you know, and this is kind of a general question, but on a, let's say, a scale of 1 to 5, meaning 5 we're just rocking it, 1 means we no impact, no idea. How are we doing in the state of Wisconsin, or in the cities or the places that you're working at, providing deliberate mentorship for young professionals and people who are coming up in this work? And be honest. And I guess the second part of that is, where are the opportunities, and what is the role and responsibility for those places to provide that type of mentorship?
Yeah, I would say that visibility. I would say that that's one of the opportunities that we need to get. Is basically when you try to find where are the mentors, and basically that connection between mentors and mentorship and mentees. That's the hardest part. Is just to understand who can be the person who wants to take the job of mentoring, and that I would say that visibility has been one of the challenges. Understand who in the community can basically pass the baton. I think is how it is. Yeah, it's basically pass the knowledge and the education. I think that's one of the opportunities that we can see. I forgot about mentioning that the young are very versed on social media, on technology. There is a lot of things that for you guys are very easy to do, to understand. I think bringing basically all the latest technology into yes, to solve the issue is also important.
So I could say about mentorship. I know the state of Wisconsin, the city of Madison, they are working on it. They understand that developing apprenticeship programs are very important for the transition to clean energy. And I understand the MATC, Madison colleges, they have, they're strong, they're working on those programs. They have solar, energy training and all those. We could use a lot more, as you said. We could use a lot more people on weatherization and energy audits and all this for sure.
Yeah, so score scale of 1 to 5. I mean I feel pretty good about this area. I'll say 4 between the school partnership that I told you. We have another program for high school schooler students where in partnership with couple community-based organizations. They come and spend the summer with us, and they get to explore all the dimensions of the utility industry, from accounting, legal, business, engineering, and other fields. And there are other activities where we bring students to MG&E and they get to explore again different areas of the company. But that being said, I think that there is need for more. Definitely, there is need for more, and also making sure that the schools and the organizations serving these young people have the resources they need, especially financial resources, to serve these students well and with dignity, and really allow them to dream and dream big. And I think that that's where we need to do more.
I think at the university, we teach students from, and particularly in Chicana and Latino studies, we teach students from across the university. So many of our classes, we are an interdisciplinary program, and we teach core courses for the university, and we're involved in thinking about core curriculum in the university, general education requirements, the ethnic studies requirement, that allow students to explore interdisciplinary knowledge. In particular, you'll see the handout I gave on Chicano and Latino studies research on the environment, to explore the research by and about marginalized communities in the US. So we help students who are, last semester I taught Introduction to Comparative Ethnic Studies and American Indian Studies. Had students from engineering, accounting, economics, HR, science, math, all the whole array of majors. And we think with students in those classes about these questions, the relationship between systems and humans. And we also think with them about what research from these communities is showing, so that whatever field they're going into, they can be thinking more complexly about and more critically about the interface between systems and humans.
Well, thank you. I could just sit here, you know what I'm saying? If we just awkward way to talk to people, you know what I'm saying, if they're at your periphery. But I did want to open it up to the audience, though. I don't know if we have anything. I don't have the online chat, but if there's any questions from the folks who are here in this room or online, I'd love to hear them.
Share. From Jessica Leclerc, she first says, "Thank you for this excellent and inspiring panel. Great discussion about the multiple intersections of social and structural determinants of health and energy justice." And then her question is, "What opportunities might there be for public health partnerships to support your work through research, education, advocacy, and/or practice?"
We're always open for collaboration. Pretty much all of our programs are implemented in collaboration with other organizations, and public health definitely it's number one within those collaborations that we have.
Yeah, great question. I would say that well, public health in the sense of it's very focused on basically the people, I think that is a major important aspect of basically trying to solve basically the climate issue that we are facing. So it's basically public health. Is basically, for example, water, air, not only the air outside, the air inside. So I will say that yes, I think the more how do you say, the more collaboration we are with the type of with the groups related to sustainability. Sometimes, for example, I just focus on the building, and then I forget that actually the people are living in the building, and I need to focus more on the people living in the building, because we need to basically provide comfort and indoor air quality and a healthy environment for them to thrive, to sleep better, to um, yes, and to basically be healthy inside. Anybody?
Well, I'd say that there's two initiatives at UW-Madison that are campus level initiatives related to climate change, Rise Earth and Rise Thrive, related to health span, which are aimed at hiring more researchers to examine particularly this nexus of the impact on public health and aspects of how climate change impacts public health. So hopefully you will have access to more classes and more professors working in these areas.
I would just say that as far as I understand, energy as- is is a determinant of public health. So what does that mean for our community and for the state? And do we have all the research that we need? And if so, how do we connect the dots? I'll leave it there just in case there are more questions.
Throw in one thing, and thank you, Dr. Jessica Leclerc. Question, I will say, challenge, I would say, for public health. I mean, the data is important. The epidemiological everything is so important. But how do you, so there's this thing, I think as Eve talked, that said that a lot of our communities and populations were always researched, yet somehow we're over-researched, yet somehow remain invisible. And so how do we start to understand these disparities without being defined by them? And I think that that remains a challenge for public health, is how, you know, how do we understand these disparities without defining our communities by them? And I think that's always a challenge in terms of doing it. But I also think that in terms of the infrastructural work, we need them to lead the way. And I think a lot of the work that we're doing in so many other fields needs to be driven by the health of the people who are there. And yeah, good question.
There are more online questions if no one in the audience here you have a question.
You mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act. Could you talk a little more about that, what you're doing, or what opportunities actually exist for that for through that act, or is it oh God, my alarm, it says it's 5:30. I can't turn it off. Well, anyway, could you talk about the Inflation Reduction?
Okay. I'll start and then you go. So Inflation Reduction Act for it's offering there are tax credits that people can claim on the tax return. If you, let's say, install solar panels, there is a 30% tax refund return, 30% tax credit, sorry, credit on your tax refund. And so on. There is a whole list of credits that people can access. Of course, we understand that not everyone can, because of the income, can actually have a refund, right? So there are some tax rebates, and the tax rebates program in Wisconsin is administered by Focus on Energy. The current program is called HOMES, and it's giving rebates from I believe it's from about $1,500 to up to $10,000, depending on the income. There are, of course, there are specific steps that need to be done. For example, a energy audit is the first step. You need to have an energy audit done by a authorized a provider by a focus on energy. There is through the EPA and Department of Energy, they have been providing numerous grants to government institutions and nonprofit organizations in partnership and so on to do different work on climate change, related climate change.
All right, we got time for maybe 2 or 3 more questions. Go ahead. Here, do you want to pass the mic, or you can say it and I can repeat it to the folks on the online.
Yeah, I can ask. First, thank you very much for all your wisdom, for sharing today. This conversation is very critical. Today's state of being. I'm often reminded in the names and just the sort of phrase global climate, how everything that's happening all around globally ends up affecting what happens locally. So I often think about, the land back movement. I think about the Pipeline 3, Pipeline 5, which are all sort of indigenous attempts to sort of combat some of these threats to Mother Earth, if you will. I think about this question and maybe trying to hear on your end if there has been sort of an intersection between the military and the global climate change, if you will, considering the U.S. sort of giving 22,000 tons of ammunition. That's not common past 2 weeks. But sort of, thinking about the reflection of the Latino community in particular, participating, right, whether we recycle by necessity or whether we do it willingly or because it's a trend. We have been trained to sort of already take care of the earth in a certain way, right, that maybe we're not fully aware because we don't know the name of it. So the question still lies of, has the intersection between military and global climate come up in your work? And if so, what for this person?
So the question was the question of the intersection between the military and, could I say, United States foreign policy and our work come up in the work that everybody does. Is that right?
I don't know if this is the answer, but I think it definitely there is a connection there. In the face of climate change, you see more destruction across communities. For example, in Latin America, and we always talk about migration, but I think it's best when we talk about like forced migration, the people that have no option but to leave their homes, and environmental disasters are one of them, but also political situations in other countries. Right now, for example, I recently learned that Memorial High School is 45% Latino. I heard that at a school on the north side, there were about 300 new families. And most of those families are coming from Latin America, from places that have been, it just, there is just a lot of dysfunctions on their political system and also poverty and migration. So now they live here in our community. And how do we see them? Do we see them as our neighbors, brothers and sisters, or what? And what are we gonna do? And that's why, we gotta participate.
Thank you so much for thinking about that and for that question. I will say that one of the key a key phrase in Latinx studies is on the question of immigration is we are here because you were there. And that goes back quite a bit in the scholarship, that the US has traditionally viewed hemispherically Latin America as its backyard. It's well established in foreign policy, and that has definitely had an impact on the conditions and circumstances that people in those countries have faced over the years, and that have prompted migration to the United States. So that question that I raised earlier about resources, when we think about resources, when we think about what we need in the US, that we also need to think about what that means for the rest of the world. And what is our relationship to the rest of that world? That is, we can't separate ourselves from it. And I think many young people are increasingly recognizing those interconnections, maybe a new generation recognizing it in different ways in this generation than some of us did back in the 80s about what was happening then. But I think that those are absolutely really essential questions to ask and to be thinking about as we think about solutions to climate crisis, to be able to think more broadly beyond what we need immediately, but also what are going to be the ramifications and consequences and implications of that.
Yeah, I would say individual actions become collective actions, and we will have an impact. There are things that are outside our reach, and I always say, from the work we have with the community, sometimes because we are always asking people, we're teaching people, but we're always asking to take some action, right? Whether it's on environmental conservation or decarbonization. And they sometimes have the perception, bring the perception from their countries of where they migrated, and they might feel like it's meaningless, to take this action. But we always have them understand that we're a collective, and we all, our small actions, individual actions, will have a bigger impact when they become a collective action.
I think we can get one more quick question. If there's one more question from either the from online or from the audience. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to kind of combine two questions we have here. A question from Scott is, given a lot of clean energy solutions require a lot of upfront costs, what unique barriers and opportunities are there for financing in addition to our IRA subsidies in Latina communities? And then just kind of adding on to that, from an anonymous attendee asks, does anyone know if there are any plans to retrofit subsidized housing or assistance for low income homeowners?
Monica, you want to go first, or I could jump in? Yeah, go ahead.
So I think that for Dane County, I'm really excited about the next coming years because I know that there's been several people, different groups at the county level talking about how to bring the most financial resources to the area and expand the services that we have. Madison overall, I believe that we have a good network of social service providers on the energy side, but they haven't had enough resources. So, for example, it goes from Energy Services Inc., providing financial assistance to help people pay the bills, to Project Home, who are doing winterizing and upgrades for families in the low income brackets. So now with this IRA funding, for sure, I think that the opportunity is there. But we do have to make sure that we align the dots and the efforts. And again, I'm excited because I know that there is a lot of effort going on. Sustain Dane has the energy efficiency navigator, and perhaps they will be expanding that. Dane County, as Christina stated, is working with other organizations too, making sure that people understand this information and are able to navigate the processes, because it's a time consuming and it gets frustrated to be navigating and providing all the information that's being asked. But I think for people, if they want more information, they could check out focusonenergy.com, and that will provide more information.
I want to add also for solar energy, there is Madison. Madison also has a program to, to help people implement solar energy.
Yeah, so yeah, I would say that there is a lot of challenges for marginalized communities, for Latin communities, for basically it's when basically our goal is to reduce energy and energy. Hopefully, when you reduce energy, we reduce energy cost, and then also and that's how we're addressing the carbon emissions, basically reducing carbon emissions. But yes, the initial cost of implementation is pretty steep. So we need is basically to understand with an energy assessment. I will say that that's kind of like it's basically going to the doctor and just check basically your building to understand what are the things that basically the energy assessment will tell you how much it's going to cost and how much it's going to save. And usually that's the typical calculation that you want to understand is basically the how do you say the payback. What we're starting to see is that the paybacks are becoming too long. For example, when I say payback, it means that like if I have to spend $1,000, but is saving me $100 of energy costs per year, then I have basically my payback is 10 years. So I'm saving money, but I have to invest a lot. So and we want that savings, so I can use that savings to buy something else. But I have to invest on that. So it's that's a major challenge, and the Inflation Reduction Act is helping. There is a lot of programs in the community that hopefully will be very key on investing the community for that. And I would say that one of the key things that we're also facing is that there are very few people that they know the technology now. So, for example, who is going to install the heat pumps? Who's going to? Very few companies. So, hopefully, by doing a lot of workforce development, investing on the local community, there will be more competition, and competition will basically, hopefully, will drive some prices down in the manufacturing side as well, and so on. So, I will say that yes, it's going to be a slow process because yes, there is a steep initial investment, but because the solutions are there, we just need to understand how to manage those cost initials.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you for the questions, and hopefully we can get some more of those to everybody if there are any. I love these conversations just because they carry a momentum, and all of a sudden we could just get into this, and we could spend another few hours. We will not be spending another few hours. So I did want to give everyone an opportunity here. First of all, the English language, European languages are insufficient to express my humility and just being able to be here with you all. So thank you so much for what you shared today and for the work that you're doing every day. I want to give you guys a chance, just kind of some final thoughts about this topic, about the times, about whatever you would like to share with us about the conversation that we've had this afternoon. And coin flip. I don't care who goes first. Just
Yeah, I could start. I would say that yes, we are talking about the Latin community, but I think the problem it's global. It's basically it's going to affect everyone. Definitely, there is a lot of communities that are going to be affected first. So I will say that when we want to solve the problem, I think the diversity of opinions, diversity of genders, diversity of races, diversity of even the young and the experienced people will be basically key everyone. See, if we are just focusing on one particular how to say group, they're gonna, if they think differently, the solutions are not, I mean, they could be enhanced by doing all this diversity. I will say that diversity is very important when we are solving problems, and I think we need to basically bring everyone to the table to make, to do the solution, to think about the solution. I will say that, and then yes, this is we want to bring people, a lot of young people into this solution. Advocacy is the first step. Talk to your representatives, for example. That's a good step. Just call them. I think they are. I figure out honestly that they are ready to listen, and they, and hopefully they will be also willing to bring that group together.
Thank you. So my message, final message would be, we definitely need to move, transition to clean energy. And that's part of the solution. If we are late, we should be way ahead on clean energy in Wisconsin. For example, the state of California, I believe 50% of their energy comes from renewable energy. In Wisconsin, only 9%. And it is an urgent matter. We need to move to clean energy. We need to stop using fossil fuels.
I want to thank you all for joining us for the conversation and for your questions. I think the final thing I would want to emphasize again is that Latinx communities have cultural practices that are sustainable environmental practices that are part of our heritage. And this is also knowledge and practice that we can re-employ, rediscover, I think, in going forward to think about new solutions to climate crisis along with others in the societies we live in.
I agree. I think that this community can definitely learn a lot from immigrant communities, especially on the environmental and sustainability side. And I think I'm hopeful for the future. I think that we need to keep moving efforts. And officially, I've been a part of this conversation for the last 12 years, and it has changed so much. On one, baby boomers retiring, topics that you didn't see 12 years ago are being discussed. There are new technologies, smart thermostats, for example, in your home, just a lot of vibrancy in the industry. That's exciting, at least for me. And I think that we got to do it as a community, rooted in community. And we got to be movement people as opposed to moment people. And I'm never been a fan of organizations that don't have constituencies or just represent one person. So my bet has always been, let's work with the organizations who truly represent the people. And I say that in the spirit of Hispanic Heritage Month. That's when we got a lot of traction, and we talked about our community as a deficit, when in reality we're asset. We focus on the food, on the music, and all the stereotyping. But at the end of the day, we are here. This is our home, and we are the solution as well.
Thank you, everybody, and thank Wisconsin Energy Institute and the Latina Cultural Center and the Wisconsin Science Festival for putting this on. It's been great being here with you. I will just leave with this. I mean, the hope versus fear, hope always wins. And I think for so many reasons, there's a lot of reasons for us to be afraid, and a lot of us, to be angry and to not let it consume us, and to remember that our foundation is love for ourselves, for our collective histories and ancestral lands and people. And that we got to focus on that, and we got to move forward with it. And that at the end of the day, that has to be what guides us more than anything else. So with that, I shall turn it back over to you.
I just wanted to say another thank you to all of our panelists and our moderator. Thank you for your valuable perspectives and insight and for all of the work that you guys do. That concludes our Latina Energy Leaders Forum. Please fill out this feedback form to let us know your thoughts and suggestions for future forums, how you felt about this one, and we hope to see you in November for our next forum. Thank you so much.